of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome, everybody. I am the Vice President of the Board, and tonight I'm acting President because Elaine Schaefer had a family obligation. We are going to make an announcement to start things off tonight that then we'll go to public participation. The Board of Commissioners has received some anonymous information concerning some of the senior staff of the township government. The Board of Commissioners is looking into the matter, and we fully support our staff. Okay, now we're going to move on to public participation, and those that want to speak, I want to reiterate the policy of the board. If you want to speak now, that's because you can't stay for the meeting. If you want to participate publicly and are going to be here for the meeting, then you wait to the end of the meeting. Mr. Geary.
No, Skolnick.
Sorry.
That's okay.
Blood drive.
Yes.
Welcome.
Dan Skolnick, South Wayne Avenue. There's a blood drive tomorrow here in the Township building from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. There are many spots available, especially during lunchtime and the early afternoon. Lots of free food. We're also have what we call a community challenge, where we like to support local nonprofits as well. So for every blood donation, we're making a contribution to the Women's Resource Center and the Francis Vale Home for Smaller Animals. So come on out. There's gift bags for coming. It's a celebration. It's in memory of my wife's mother, who needed blood transfusions during her battle with cancer. So hopefully we'll see you there and those at home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing it, and I give you credit. This is the second or third year that you've done it. It's great. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Is there anybody else that wants to speak at this point? I should announce then that we had an executive session amongst the 5 commissioners before this meeting where we discussed personnel matters. Commissioner Schaefer and Commissioner Booker were not present for that. All right, let us move on to the consent agenda. You have the information.
I'll move the approval of the consent agenda.
Second.
All right. Is there any discussion?
Or does anyone want to remove anything?
Yeah, I know, Bill. I'm going to get there.
Okay. No, go ahead.
Does anybody
No.
think that we should not have 2 items on the consent agenda that are proposed to be on the consent agenda? If not, I will call the vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. Nay. So the motion passes 5-0. We have a presentation now from Mr. Simone Collins of Greenways and regarding our Greenways and Open Space Network Plan, and he is here with us.
Good evening. Thank you very much for your time. My name is Peter Simone of the firm Simone Collins.
I'm sorry.
Mr. Collins is another person, but that's okay. He's not offended. I'm going to be very brief tonight. This is sort of an update for the board to tell you where we are in the process, and we'll be coming back to you in the future. We're in month, I guess, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, month 8 of this process. And since we started, we've had 7 committee meetings, 2 public meetings, 3 focus groups. This is our first presentation about this project to the board this evening. And still to go, we have scheduled 3 more presentations or updates to this board. We have 2 more public meetings and 4 more committee meetings. We had a very good meeting last week, an informal meeting with PennDOT, just to go over some ideas with them, and they've been very helpful. So we have a lot of opportunities. We've already had a lot of opportunities for public participation. We're going to continue to have those right up to the completion of the project, hopefully in September. If we find we need to go longer for more public comment, we can certainly do that as we move forward. So that's certainly great. Just a little primer for the board in terms of what we're looking at here. We have typically different organizations break down groups of cyclists into different types. We have advanced cyclists, the guys and gals who are out there in their spandex and go really fast and aren't really bothered by traffic too much. We have the basic cyclists, folks who maybe are a little less confident, would rather be not on a road, but will travel on a road, maybe with low traffic. And then we'll have child cyclists. And because of the nature of Radnor, we're going to be mainly providing for groups A and B here, because you're a fully developed township. Child cyclists would, and I'm talking about, maybe 12 and under, would probably want to be on off-the-road trails, which we're going to have some of, but not as many as on-the-road trails in terms of how this is developing. Bicycle classifications are similarly designated. Class 1 is a completely separated trail, not where you don't have to deal with automobile traffic, and that is, of course, what you have, your regionally famous Radnor Trail, which gets very heavy use. Class 2 are bike lanes within a roadway for the exclusive use of cyclists. We may have some of those in this plan where there are markings for bike lanes. Bike lanes typically need to be 5 feet in width. Sometimes they're separated with a little barrier between vehicular traffic. And then the third type are bike routes. You will see them as share the road. They're not bike lanes. We'd like to have them as a minimum 3 foot of a shoulder width, more if possible. And so these are for folks who are more comfortable with traffic. And so these are the 3 types of routes we're looking at. This system will be recreational, but it will also be a commuting system. It will be not only for recreation and physical exercise. We hope it will connect various points within the township for folks who would like to take advantage of the ability to do that. Our scope is broken down into several major and minor components, and I'll just really quickly review those with you. To look at a trail and greenway network within the township, to look at what the regional connection opportunities are, because certainly Radnor's in a very good position, you'll see in a minute, where you'll be able to connect to regional systems of trails as your system is further developed. We're asked to make recommendations regarding development and maintenance of those systems. We want to have an implementation strategy that identifies potential funding sources. And again, the township has taken advantage in the past of different funding sources, and I think the environment of Pennsylvania is a good one generally. It's improving. So we believe that this project will have opportunities to get funding from outside the community to bring it back to this community. And I'll mention this project, too, is a generational project. The recommendations we finally get to when we submit the draft plan for your review and public review is not a 5-year project or an 8-year project. It's probably a 15 or 20-year project. So it's a very long-range plan that we're looking at because it's going to take some time. The minor pieces of our scope are to review criteria for acquiring and selling open space. Mr. Zinkowski did forward to the Board of Commissioners a memo a couple of months ago. We would welcome any comments you have on that memo. We sent it to you because it's a little bit of a separate issue, certainly related to the study. So if the board would like to give us comments before the draft plan that you're going to get next month, that would be great. If not, we'll wait until you're able to give us those comments. We want to look at incorporating stormwater management into the trail system as we can. We want to look at the historic and cultural aspects of the township and try to connect those, and also integrate what your Shade Tree Commission is doing with the Greenway Plan. So those are sort of the minor components. I mentioned to you regional connections, and what you see here is a map of what's called the circuit. This is a regional trail system that has become a priority for the Delaware Valley Regional Planning Commission and also the William Penn Foundation, who is funding a lot of these trails. And you can see the green are existing, the blue are planned, purple recommended for funding. And so you can see once this system is implemented, and again, it's probably 20 years away or more, there's going to be a superhighway of trails through the region. Radnor happens to be in a very good position. You're almost smack dab in the middle. You're going to have good opportunities to connect to the region. So that's one of the great things about this trail study moving forward. In this planning process, where we've worked with a very good committee, we've identified different destinations, and you have many of them. You have lots of great institutions. You have a tremendous park system. You have commercial areas. You have business areas. And so, and you have a great, unusually high number of transit stations in the township. So we want to be able to connect the system to those transit stations because that extends the ability of people to use their bikes and also walking to extend their trips into and into the township. So we have a work in progress right now. I'm not going to go into detail about it. You'll be able to review the draft plan next month. But we have a total system of around 35 miles if it's fully implemented over the years. And you can see how it connects to all the various institutions and destinations. And then we're also going to be recommending a priority route system because in any plan you want to know, well, what should we tackle first and second and so on. So we're going to try to recommend a priority system that ties into the existing Radnor Trail, which is that dotted blue line coming diagonally down the picture here from left to right, so that you will have a loop system, and then the other non-loop items will connect into that. So we're looking at this from a sort of a systems approach. We also have an online citizen survey. We've got just under 500 responses so far. It's a qualitative survey. We ask folks about where they go to recreate, what they do when they go there. I'm not going to go into results. We'll publish that in the draft plan. Really no surprises. I mean, one of the really good things the township gets very high marks for is the maintenance of your existing park system. Most people feel that it's very good and for good reason. So we're trying to get some qualitative information that will relate both to the trail plan and also help Ms. Cohen with how she evaluates some of the parks. So again, we're in process here. You can see the number of meetings we're going to have. Another thing that will be done when the draft plan comes out, the committee is going to be conducting some key interviews with folks about the draft plan to get more input. We have a web page, as you know, devoted to the project, so anyone who wants to get information, we have all the meeting minutes on there from each meeting so that anyone can see what happened at that meeting, what was said, what was suggested, and you can see the list of the remaining meetings. So it's been a very well-attended process. We've had a lot of, I would characterize as positive feedback, and you know, we look forward to working with you and residents and our committee to get to the draft plan. And again, we fully expect at the draft plan submission, it's still going to be fluid. We're still going to be making changes, fine-tuning things. And the more input we get, quite frankly, the better the plan will be. So with that, I'll stop. And if you have any questions, I can try to address them.
Could you, before the other, you have township residents as participants on this. How many are there?
I think Cheryl Tamula is here tonight. She's the chairperson of the committee. I think we have maybe 8 or 9 folks, and the really good news is most of them come to every meeting. It's really great participation.
Okay. Commissioner,
a couple of things for clarity's sake.
Yes,
in the beginning, you started out by showing us bikeways, but then later on, you're talking about like the township trails, and only 2 miles of the township trails is a bikeway. The rest are walking trails. So this greenways system is not just about bikes, right?
Correct. We're also looking to connect pedestrians. We are going to have some walking trails only in some of the township parks because they're really not suited for bikes.
Right.
And also, we're going to recommend some no-access greenways. We may suggest some greenways that are really enhancements or just reinforcing what you already do with your riparian buffer ordinances to protect those sensitive areas.
The other thing, just a caution, years ago we had done a map of street trails, if you will, which we haven't been able to resurrect, right, Tammy? We never found that drawing. And when I was out walking these street trails with other people in the Parks and Rec Board, we had neighbors coming out to talk to us. I want to make certain any path that you're proposing that the neighbors have an opportunity to comment on before that begins, before the ink dries, if you will.
As you saw, Commissioner, we have 22 meetings over the course of the study. So As I said,
that
we
doesn't-
welcome any comment and any participation
No,
at
I'm
any
talking
time.
outreach. Don't depend on them coming to you. We should go to them.
We're certainly happy to do that. If you suggest a mechanism how we should do that, we're happy to do it.
John, is this, like, I mean, I know what, Bill Spingler could probably attest to this the best. When we did our trail, there were quite a number of residents who were opposed to it because it was in their backyard. And then now they're all in favor of it because they realize how great it is.
No, the issue is the people in Radnor don't want a sidewalk in front of their house, so that's a problem. So we
That,
need to
yeah.
address that, yeah.
Could you roll back a couple slides to the map of the proposed trails? I just want to, I was, yeah, that's the one. I was really disappointed. I'm in the 7th Ward, where's the Garrett Hill section, and the SEPTA Route 100 trolley line there is actually a double easement, meaning there was enough room for 2 rail beds, and 1 rail bed is not installed. And I thought it odd that, and I know that the committees up until this point had met with SEPTA and tried to get talk about access rights and whatnot, but it seems a shame to me. Our trail is pretty linear and all of a sudden takes a right turn, and it just doesn't seem natural. If you look at all the other trail systems in the network, they tend to flow long lengths, long distances. But here's our trail. As it's proposed, it's going to hang a right turn and go completely in a different direction. And I'm not advocating that it has to go through our area, but boy, we're leaving off a huge number of residents, 5,000 that live in the 7th Ward. It's actually, there are only 2 wards that are that dense, or 2 areas that are that dense in the township. And I just thought, you know, is there still an opportunity to discuss with SEPTA, to go further with this discussion? Because I really felt that, you know, maybe we didn't reach the right people at SEPTA, and they were concerned about liability, they were concerned about safety, as they should be. But, you know, the trail systems generally do get fences, and they're protected, so you're keeping the residents away from the rail systems.
Peter may not be familiar with some of the prior work that's been done, John, but there was a meeting with SEPTA with one of our state reps. And what they told us at that time is they now have this thought of throwing, you know, the extension out the Valley Forge, King of Prussia area. So they can't give up any right of way. That's
Well,
what they told us. But
yeah.
I think we got to keep
That's if they
hammering them.
decide, yeah, it's not, I haven't heard that they planned, right now there's 2 rails.
Right.
There's room for 4. So it is a pretty wide easement.
we're-
And I've walked it from Garrett Hill all the way to the high school. So it really goes a good distance.
Right. We're aware of what was, everything that was mentioned, and at the beginning of the study, we were made aware of, SEPTA has basically said, not so much for safety, because we've done rails with trails, and they can be made safe, but they're concerned about future capacity for additional rail lines. And even if a trail was put in there with the caveat that would return to rail, emotionally and politically, that would be very hard to do. So SEPTA is looking out for their capacity. There's another study being done, which you're probably aware of, by another consultant that, I don't know if it's your dad, maybe Mr. Fisher. Is that John Fisher, the other John Fisher? Okay, another Mr. Fisher, sorry. Another Mr. Fisher is chair of, okay. Oh, okay, and anyway, he is chairing
great man, but we're not related.
He's chairing another study that goes through Radnor called the Forge to Preserve Trail that will go down to 69th Street. And that consultant is also, I believe, avoiding that right-of-way for the same reason we are. Now,
Well, that's the group that met with SEPTA.
yes.
And
So we like to do plans that actually can be built. Now, we could add that as a wish to the plan. I'd be happy to do that with the caveat that SEPTA has said no, and I don't think that position, and I think for good reason, is going to change in the near future. But that's the reason it's not on there. We're not trying to avoid that area. We just, again, want to be realistic in what we suggest. So,
Great. So I would like to see it added just as a wish, only because I think, I understand what SEPTA has, what I'm hearing, but what I know is that the ridership on the Route 100 is very low. So it's well below capacity. The Garrett Hill stop only has about 50 people getting on and off each day. And they're not residents for the most part. They're actually people coming to work in the area. We have a few residents that get on that stop. Maybe there's 20. So it's really underutilized. And if they extend up to King of Prussia, they're just talking about an extension from the Spring Mill.
Additional trackage because
Right.
express, like the express.
Want to have an express, yeah.
Express to bring
And that
water
may
and
be,
everything,
but
yeah.
you know,
We
No,
they don't seem to have the money to
we
add.
hammered them on this.
We can contact SEPTA and express the board's
That
desire
would-
to do that.
I would appreciate that only, and again, I don't want to waste money on this and waste any planning around this because clearly it sounds like they're not interested, but I'd like to push them one more time on it and see. Yeah.
Any other commissioner?
Yes, I have, so thank you for this. I anticipate supporting it. This is the sort of thing that I believe the constituents want, so I'm glad we're doing it. I do have some trouble with some of the particulars about the Lenore Avenue portion of this, and I did email you about that. So as we see it in our part of town, that's kind of like an 8-foot linear park that will be, in some cases, 10 or 15 feet from somebody's front door. So we think that's a bad alternative or a bad component. We think there's alternatives that are better. So, and I sent you some of those in the email. They include crosswalks at South Devon and West Wayne, a path along South Devon in the vicinity. The Boy Scouts built a sort of an impromptu connection. One Saturday, they built some steps to it. I don't know if you looked at Owens Alley yet, but it's the only dirt road in Radnor as far as I know, and it could provide a link to it. And then last would be just the traditional paint, in the street for the Class 2 and the Class 3. So we think there's alternatives. The neighbors are going to work with this subcommittee to try to change the draft. And but I just want you to be aware of the concerns that I have for that particular component.
Right, and I know you're aware that a couple of the members of the committee have met with the residents. We are making some revisions.
Yes.
And this is exactly the type of input we need when the draft plan comes
Great.
out. I'm sure there will be similar comments and suggestions from other neighborhoods, and that's, in terms of the outreach, that's really important, and it's great that you televise these meetings, you get them out. It's really important that people get back to us with detailed comments, because that's the only way we can react. I mean, every project we do in the public sector, we do a lot of outreach, and there's always folks we miss somehow. We think we have a very robust participation process, and but again, hopefully people will look at the draft, because it'll be online in total, and give us comments back, and that's really
Yes.
very
And-
helpful.
And the committee was very supportive of the neighbor's concern, and your consultant was also, I'm assuming it's your peer,
Yes.
was also very supportive, so thank you for that.
Sure, thank you.
Since this is primarily intended to enhance bicycle use, does that mean this is all going to be paved?
No, we will have pedestrian routes. So it's not all bike, but it's primarily bike.
Okay, and the title of the organization is Greenways and Open Space Network, but you're really not about finding new open space for the township, are you?
We're not. We did, as I mentioned, we did prepare a memo to the board a couple of months ago that goes into detail about your existing open space acquisition process. We've made some suggestions for review. So that is really the extent of our open space work. The title of the project might be a little bit of a misnomer, but that's not our charge in terms of our scope, is not to look for new parcels to acquire.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sure.
Peter, wasn't it actually, and Cheryl can answer this, I thought the idea was to connect the open spaces.
Yes.
Rather than to create new open spaces.
Yes. Great.
Thank you.
Sure. Thank you very much for your time.
All right. Is there public comment in this sort of thing? Okay. Yes. Is anybody in the audience who would like to comment on Mr. Simone's presentation?
Hi there, Kathy Wright, Lenore Avenue. I just wanted to let you know, wanted to let Mr. Simone know that we look forward to meeting with him before the apparent more formal draft of next month. From what we just gathered, Caroline and I are here representing Lenore Avenue, and we have concerns as verbalized by our commissioners. It's interesting that in the plan, one of the messages about our street was that it's a low impact, and I have pictures here to show Mr. Simone and everyone, before next month's meeting, that it's hardly that. So we have evidence to present to him that is more current than the information that they had when they came up with Lenore Avenue. So just wanted to thank you, and we look forward to meeting with Mr. Simone.
Kathy, fair to say that it was, you're one person representing. At the meeting, we probably had 10 or 12 families represented.
Oh, yes, actually, yeah, 10 or 12 families, and then we had emails from those who could not attend the library meeting on May the 1st that went with you.
I'm quite comfortable that you're speaking for a large group.
Well, we already submitted the alternatives that we were asked to suggest to the subcommittee for Lenore Avenue. We submitted several alternatives, which is what the subcommittee asked us to do. Right. So we're not all here tonight because we all felt like we had already done what we were asked to do.
And we're not presenting details, designing it tonight. The group is working with the subcommittee to try to have their ideas addressed in the draft process.
Right. Because apparently safety, as is quoted in the presentation of 74 pages, is paramount to the consultants and is certainly paramount to Lenore Avenue.
Right. Thank you, Mrs. Wright. Is there anybody else in the audience that wants to say anything?
Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is number 3, consideration of the appointment of counsel to the Ethics Board. We have, as you know, an ethics board in the township comprised of 6 members, and we have an opening for the solicitor position because John Rice recently determined that it would be best that he not serve on the ethics board for the current matter that the board was considering, which were ethics charges against one of our commissioners. So the township manager, I believe, Bob, you have done some interviewing and you have a recommendation.
That's correct. Joel Barris, Joel is here this evening, sitting in the back of the room. After speaking with several attorneys, I feel that Joel can do a nice job here representing the ethics board. I think his approach is very sound working with the ethics board, and I recommend that Joel be appointed by the Board of Commissioners to represent the Ethics Commission.
I see from your resume you were with the law firm of Reed Smith, which is a fine firm, and it's actually a Pittsburgh firm, which is my hometown. Is there a motion to?
So I move we appoint Joel S. Barris as counsel to the Ethics Board.
Second.
Is there discussion amongst the board? Is there anybody from management that wants to comment? Anybody in the audience that wants to comment? I recognize this gentleman. It's Mr. Sherry.
Yes, just again, for purpose of the record, Dan Sherry Wayne. Just in case it wasn't made clear in terms of the introduction, this ethics investigation for which this replacement attorney is coming in for is an ethics investigation of Third Ward Commissioner Bill Spingler. Is Commissioner Spingler going to take part in this vote?
I'm sure Mr. Spingler will make the right decision. I haven't talked to him about that.
Okay, just making sure, because there are presently 5 commissioners here. They're voting on consideration of the appointment of counsel to the Ethics Board. To my understanding, I could be incorrect, there's only one pending ethics investigation, and that is against Mr. Spingler.
You mentioned it over and over again.
I also want to make it clear for the record that Mr. Spingler is represented by counsel, so although I understand he may have questions for me, I believe it would be inappropriate to respond to Mr. Spingler directly. So if this is a process that's occurring where there's consideration and public comments, and Mr. Spingler is not leaving the room regarding it, I can tell you on behalf of my client, Christina Peroni, I have an objection to that. I'll reserve the rest of my questions. I'll also represent to the record, for the record, that Mr. Barris reached out to me, as well as counsel for Commissioner Spingler via email. I had some inquiries for him regarding, among other things, investigation management dates, but I'll reserve that until such time as this board takes a specific vote on the issue. So, thank you.
Is there any other comment from the audience? All right. Then I'm going to call the vote. All those in favor of the appointment of Joel S. Barris, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. The motion passes 4-0 with 1 abstention. The next item is our committee reports. Let's go to public safety. No, I'm sorry, personnel and administration.
Jim, we only have one item. It's the Board of Commissioners calendar for the summer. Administration was very nice to provide this in our packets. Typically, and correct me if I'm wrong, the Board of Commissioners, up until a few years ago, would only meet once per month in the summer. A few years back, we realized that we were not getting all of our work done, so we started having 2 meetings per month. I think it would be a good idea at this moment to ask administration, Mr. Zinkowski, if you have any preference, because our meetings do affect your time and staff's time and the efficiency of the operations throughout the summer. So if you want to comment on that.
Sure. I know I've had some comments too since I've been here, as residents are concerned with having multiple meetings in the summer, vacations and those types of things, that some items may be discussed and residents wouldn't be able to be here. So the recommendation would be is to hold the first meeting of each month in June, which would be June 9th, July 14th, and August 11th. Still reserve those dates that we have that were scheduled for the second meeting of each month. So if the board has any action they need to take or anything comes up, there's at least the room is reserved and the date is reserved and the board, as part of your calendars, are there. But that it would be, would meet on those 3, 1 meeting each month during the summertime.
Okay, so I'll move on that recommendation that we hold our meetings on June 9th, July 14th, August 11th, but reserve the remaining dates as needed.
Second.
Is there any comment from any other commissioners? My preference is to certainly ensure that we have 2 meetings a month as a potential. The problem with canceling meetings or not having meetings in August is that it loads us up in September so that we end up with a situation which is Donald Curley's favorite, and that is we start at 6:30 in the evening and we finish up at 1 o'clock in the morning. So I'll support the motion, but I think that it's wise to bear in mind that it's it is quite possible that we will need to have 2 meetings in June, 2 meetings in July, and 2 meetings in August. Any other comment? Anybody from staff, management, anybody in the audience that wants to comment?
Hi, good evening, everyone. I'm Diane Edbrill. I live on Spruce Tree Road. I don't have any objection at all. I think it's great that you guys are planning this and putting these dates out at this point. My only request would be that keep in mind, that people in the township who are concerned and want to be involved in what's happening at these meetings will be relying on this. And I just hope, and certainly nobody has a crystal ball, and emergencies have to be dealt with as they arise. But it has also been my experience in past years that important matters have been put on summertime agendas sort of at the last minute. And I would just request, in light of sort of the recent dialogues that have been going on here about transparency and notice and et cetera, that all efforts be made to avoid that sort of a situation as we go through the summer when it's likely that many people are out of town and unable to respond on short notice to something that may very well be of great importance to them. Thank you very much.
Any other comments from the audience? All right, all in favor of Mr. Fisher's motion, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. The motion passes 5-0, 5-0. All right, the next,
Public safety, no report.
no report. Public Works and Engineering. I don't have any report, but Mr. Norsini, do you want to say anything about open projects?
Surely, I could, as you had reported in one of your newsletters, the Shaboney Road sidewalk project is complete except for a few punch list items. The North Wayne Avenue crosswalk has one component left for completion, and that would be the physical crosswalk surface, which is tentatively scheduled for tomorrow, weather permitting. The Shaboney Road Bridge engineering is just about complete, and we're ready to get our contractors and bids. The resurfacing program is scheduled to start Wednesday, Browning Lane being the first. That'll be milling, and there's some other roads around there, Roberts, South Roberts, and that will be done. And the website will be updated with each leg of the resurfacing program as portions are completed.
I get about one inquiry a day regarding the Shaboney Road Bridge. What is,
Tentatively speaking, we've taken in consideration some of the comments we've gotten, and we've gotten some form liner details, which I'll be sharing with the board. I guess at this point, without having it in hand, my best estimate, it would be that, later this summer, that culvert would be repaired, would be replaced.
but let's start with the engineering then.
Okay, I'm
When
sorry.
will the engineering be finished?
The engineering is complete for the hydrology and so forth for the bridge. We did add a sidewalk
Yeah.
to the culvert itself, and we're also adding some connecting pieces. So that came on a little late, and we're working through that along with the facade, the form liner, if you will, which will be given to the board to pick what that facade will look like. And that's all wrapping up literally very shortly here, within a day or so.
Our board won't meet for another 2 weeks. We're not going to hold up.
We'll get the prices knowing that there's one of 3 form liners that can be used. That won't be a problem.
And we have to approve that?
I would recommend the board take a look at the form liners to really decide what facade you wish to have, but that won't hold up the process. That'll be part of the
All right, so
the construction process.
then the next step would be to prepare the request for proposals, or are those already?
Right, the majority of that's done at this point. So it's just a few loose ends, and I'm hoping if we can, that goes out this week for a very short timeline to the contractors and back, and then at one of the closest meeting possible for this board to act on.
So you'll ask for bids in the shortest time possible?
Absolutely, sir.
And you're hoping to have engineering finished this week and the bid packages finished this week?
Correct.
And construction then, well, when would the bids come back?
If we get them out this week, I'll arrange it, we're going to give it a very short lead so that it falls, they're back before the, no later than the second meeting in June, preferably if we can do the first, but no later than the second.
So that's 6 weeks from now.
Correct. But we're going to aim for that first meeting. That's the outside, would be the second meeting in
For us
June.
to have the bids and select.
Correct.
And then what's your, I hate to monopolize
Can I,
things
can
here,
I make a suggestion?
but I have one more question.
Well, I was just about to,
What is the timeline for construction?
We will need to talk to the contractors, but I haven't consulted fully with Roger on this, but I think, roughly a couple of months, and I'm going to say that as a couple, meaning the summer, weather permitting, that this would be done. That's why I'm saying I think a little later in the summer, the project would be complete. The way it was designed was to expedite construction in that it's going to be a pipe culvert, so I am hoping that moves along more quickly than I said. I'm giving you what I think are the long projections.
I'm sorry to interrupt before. I was going to suggest that, you know, I don't really have a preference on the liner selection. To me, that really should be between the commissioner of that ward and the constituents of that ward. It doesn't change the cost, as far as I know, right? We're just picking a pattern. And, you know, unless there's some standardization, unless you plan to standardize these throughout the township, I'm perfectly comfortable with that decision being made administratively. You know, if you want to bounce it off the commissioner, or maybe have the commissioner bounce it off the constituents that live in the neighborhood. But I don't see the need for that. That seems to be very detail-oriented for the board, so.
We've actually done what he said. You and I have talked, I've consulted with people,
And that's fine. I'll make sure Commissioner Higgins has the choice, and there will be no slow up because of that. There will be no delay because
It
of that.
won't be me. It will be people that I report to.
Very good.
Okay, thank you, Steve. Finance and audit.
No report?
Nothing. Community development.
Nothing.
And Mr. Nagel, Parks and Recreation, anything?
Tammy, do you want to report on a couple of the presentations from last week's meeting? Just briefly.
In regards to the Board of Commissioners?
Well, we had some things presented to the board, and they had agreed. So we talked to the board about that.
In terms of Veterans Park?
Yeah.
In terms of the Veterans Park, we did hold a meeting on April 30th with the residents who live adjacent to the park and had some really good discussion with them. There was some determination to go back and make some changes to the presentation actually that Peter Simoni had made to you, which I believe was on March 28th. So we are working with Peter Simoni to go back and I think one of the comments that was made in regards to the Veterans Park plan that you had seen was to bring the sidewalk back inside to the park and keep the berm so as not to create any more open exposure than what currently exists within the park. Also to install some lighting along the walkway into the park and take a look at some of the fencing that goes along the walkway into the park. So we're going to plan to meet with the residents again. And overall, I will say that everyone was receptive to the plan from the feedback that we've gotten so far and excited to recognize and honor the veterans within the park and, of course, increase usage within the park. With regards to Enke Park and our playground replacement, our equipment has been on order, and I anticipate that by the end of May we will be in receipt of that. It'll actually be delivered directly to the Playground Pros, which is the firm that's going to be installing the equipment. And I anticipate and hope that no later than mid-July we have a brand new playground that's out there at Enke Park, which we're excited about. And I know that we have some residents who've been enthusiastic about that project and getting that project finalized as well. We'll, in terms of events, just announce that this upcoming Sunday we have our second annual skate park jam that's going to be taking place right down here in the Radnor Skate Park. It's an informal competition, educational-based type of an event where we have a lot of skaters and bikers that will be there taking part in friendly competition for prizes and things like that. Last year's event was a huge success. We had about 150 skaters that took part in it, which comprised of a lot of residents who, of course, use the park on a daily basis, at least from what I observed looking out my window. So if there's any other items you want me to comment, John, but in summary, that's what's going on with Parks and Rec.
That's it. Thank you very much. That's in the report.
Commissioner Booker is supposed to come in 4 minutes, and if he does show up, we can have a library report. I know are some things going on with the library board regarding design for a possible expansion. Bob, do you have any current information on that?
Just in regards to that, I think the next step in this process is I believe the library board is going to be having some conversations about the next step with a potential meeting with the Board of Commissioners on where to go with this. Now, you have the plan. How is the funding going to look for this, and what are their plans? What are their contributions? So I know that Commissioner Booker is working with the library board, and I think there's some upcoming meetings that he's going to be having. So I think that'll be coming back to the board after Rich works with the board on that.
All right, thank you. Is there a report on public health?
No report.
All right, we're now to old business. Does anybody have any
Yeah, I
old
have
business?
one. I want to know if the board has an interest in having a 12-month moratorium or a delay on the must ordinance. And if there's an interest in the board, then we could put it on the agenda or just give informal advice. But my reasoning is that that started out as something that had 4 supporters and 3 commissioners who really were not supportive of it. Over the course of time, it has changed so much that the applicant apparently is no longer supportive of it. And the 4 commissioners that supported it are considerably less supportive of it. And my concern is that we're spending a lot of time on something that doesn't have a lot of support, and it's going to cut into at least 2 very important issues that are coming up over the next year, which is the conditional use application for a prospective conditional use application for Villanova, and all the messy entanglements that has with it, and then also the conditional use with Ardrossan. So my sense is that we shouldn't be spending time on the must. I just don't think there's enough support for it from the board and from the township for it to be taking our time over the next 9 to 12 months. So your sense of whether that's a good idea or a bad idea?
If the developer has dropped interest in it or support, then your motion or your point is a good one. I haven't seen anything to indicate the developer has backed off from their desire to have this board move on it.
Didn't they indicate at the last meeting that if we passed it, they would have no indication to build under it because it was changed so dramatically? That's my recollection of what they expressly said.
I don't remember that. Does anybody else?
They may have indicated something to that effect. At this point, though, we've already contracted with a planner to give us a range of by right capability for that site. I think it is worth one more look at it once we get that number. That's range of, I imagine would be a range of numbers. We have an opportunity at that site to not let it be by right, and encourage the developer to do something different and control the traffic issues and whatnot. I mean, I'm certainly not to characterize what you, to agree with your characterization that what, started out looking like I wouldn't support it, moved more in the direction of support, but it's still not where I wanted it to be. And everyone has different opinions. So, but I think we may need to go back to it at some point. That site will get redeveloped at some point. And if the township has an opportunity to have an impact on how it's developed through conditional use, then we may be better off. So, but we need to know what the numbers are. So if the numbers come back and they're pretty much in line with what's already there, then maybe that gives us the answer. There's not a need to change the ordinance. But if it comes out differently, then maybe we want to look at that and consider it. But I don't want to waste time either. I don't want the applicant to think that we're going to move ahead right now anyway. So it didn't make a lot of sense, but I'd like to know what that number is, and then based on that number, does it make sense to move in any direction at that point? So
Don,
maybe
can we
can
consider continue this discussion till after we have the report back from the independent planner?
Based on that, then I think we make a good decision at that time.
There be public comment on
Any new business?
Can there be public comment on the must?
You can, under public
Well,
participation, you can.
Yeah, well, we didn't vote on it, so, yeah.
Any new business? Any public participation?
Good evening, Sarah Armstrong, Radnor resident. I was hopeful that maybe administration could provide some guidance to me specifically and to others in the township, what we should do to report or deal with downed telephone poles from the winter storm. Our neighborhood actually still has 2 cut poles that just got tossed. Understandably, during the storm, they put up new poles and reran the wires, but we have 2 downed ones in our neighborhood, and I've noticed quite a few throughout the township. So guidance would be helpful, I think, if we should call the township or if we should be calling the phone company. It's probably theirs. So thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I might, I would recommend, Sarah, if you let Jennifer know or call my office. We've got a good contact with the utilities there, more than likely PECO, and work through that. And I know they've had some connections to be able to work through Verizon, so try to get that.
And if there's a pole number, there's usually a tag on the pole. That number and the address is what's needed.
Hi, Diane Edbrill again. Just to follow up on Mr. Curley's recommendation about 12-month moratorium and also Mr. Fisher's comments about it, I think both of you gentlemen made some valid points here. I would specifically request maybe some middle ground. I don't know what the timeline is for the planner to get his work done on the by right, but in any event, this is such a controversial matter and something I think that's at the heart of a lot of concern among the residents of the township, that at the very least, if the commissioners would consider voting on not discussing the must at all through the summer. I think that really would put a lot of people's minds at ease and maybe help to restore a little bit of confidence that the process is going to move in a much more transparent and inclusive way when and if it does. So maybe can sort of smush it all together and do that, especially in light of the discussion about the summer calendar and my remarks about that as well. Thank you very much.
Any other public comment?
Dear Cherry, again, Wayne. Now that Mr. Barris or Barris, I want to make sure I'm pronouncing that correct.
Barris.
Barris. Now that Mr. Barris has been voted upon by this board to be counsel for the ethics investigation of William Spingler, I can now make my comments regarding the management of this particular investigation and specifically dates. Mr. Barris contacted me last Friday advising that he was going to be counsel for the Ethics Board, and I provided some correspondence back to him, and just for everyone's edification, all correspondence that I receive or in turn send is also sent to the press. Specifically, I asked Mr. Barris about scheduling for this ethics investigation, because it's very important to know, if nothing else, when the deadline will be for the providing of data to the Ethics Board for consideration. At the April 24th, 2014 hearing, Solicitor Rice, who was then advising the Ethics Board, made the comment.
It wasn't a hearing, it was a meeting. It was a reorganization meeting.
Excuse me. At the meeting where Solicitor Rice was present, this was about 72 hours before Solicitor Rice voluntarily recused himself, that the ethics complaint was available. It wasn't. And further made the assertion that people who have information should come forward to the Ethics Board. It is now rectified insofar as the complaint being publicly available. The complaint and its supplements have been provided to Mainline Suburban Life by me, and they are viewable through the Mainline Suburban Life's website. However, the solicitation for people who have information to come forward presently has no time parameters associated with it, at least not that I know of. I haven't received any information from the Ethics Board, either through counsel back when Mr. Rice was representing them, or through new counsel, as to when this data is required to be in. When I brought that to Mr. Barris's attention, his response was, and I'll just quote him directly, this is again regarding scheduling, his response is, I will be in attendance Monday night. However, as counsel for the Ethics Board, it would be inappropriate for me to publicly discuss any conversations I have had with the Ethics Board. More specifically, I will not publicly disclose any information about the agenda or schedule unless specifically instructed to do so by my client. Moreover, it is not my intention nor my role to set the agenda or schedule for the Ethics Board. He's correct about that. He does not set the agenda for the Ethics Board. That's really for the Ethics Board chairman, who is Bud Hirsch. However, in response to that, I'll just read what I sent to Mr. Barris. The scheduling of the active ethics investigation regarding 3rd Ward Commissioner William Spengler is, I respectfully submit, not something that can uniformly be considered privileged. I'm not broadly asking for the disclosure of all communications between the Ethics Board and you. Again, this is directed to Mr. Barris. At this point, I'm not even asking for the agendas or subject matters of non-public Ethics Board meetings. However, I do need to know specific upcoming deadlines so that my client and I are aware when the Ethics Board is planning to finalize the collection of data pertinent to the investigation, similar to a fact discovery deadline in litigation. Obviously, I do not want to submit evidence, interview witnesses, or inter alia file supplemental briefs if the Ethics Board has already decided that it will not no longer consider any additional materials. Therefore, I need to know at a minimum that particular deadline in order to, to appropriately plan my schedule, and I stand by that. People need to know that. The levels of inquiry in Ms. Peroni's complaint, insofar as Commissioner Spengler, are expansive and they're broad, and they continue to become more expansive due to comments that Commissioner Spengler makes in the press. Just was learned last week, and again submitted to the Ethics Board and sent to the press. Mr. Spengler has stated to multiple reporters that it is an entity known as Event One that is cutting the checks. Just this past Friday, we received notification that through a Villanova University student newspaper that at least as of 2009, Event One no longer exists.
Mr. Sherry, you're getting into material.
Mr. Sherry, isn't this for the Ethics Board? Why are you bringing this in front, other than to have the newspaper publish your statements? Why are you bringing that in front of this board?
I'm hearing some buzzing in my right ear. I certainly hope that would not be John Rice, who has recused himself from this investigation.
Well, you don't have to make comments like that, but may I ask you respectfully, this is, or inform you respectfully, a matter that is going before the Ethics Board.
I'm interested that you bring that up.
Can I finish? Secondly, I'm sure Mr. Barris, having only been appointed about 30 minutes ago, will take the time and apply his intellectual acumen to understanding his responsibilities to the Ethics Board. And when he sees it appropriate, determines that it's appropriate, he'll contact you and let you know what the schedule of.
Let me first address the first point you made about this is really an Ethics Board situation, because it dovetails
one last
nicely.
thing. I just took 45 seconds of your time, and you're pushing 5 minutes, so
let me address specifically actually behavior on your end, Commissioner Higgins, at the last Board of Commissioners meeting regarding this. At the last Board of Commissioners meeting, Commissioner Fisher was about to make a presentation regarding specific communications he had with Commissioner Spengler. You cut him off. You then allowed Bill Spengler, sans any interruption, to make 2 presentations. One was, don't shake your head at me, it's on videotape. One was a quasi-substantive defense. It actually didn't end up being a defense, where Commissioner Spengler admitted that he had taken money in the form of reimbursements. The second was a sympathy defense, where Commissioner Spengler stated the impact on his family, specifically his son, his fiance's son, and business transactions that were coming forward. So I take considerable exception, and you let him go that way uninterrupted, whereas you interrupted Commissioner Fisher, who was going to make a factual statement, I do believe, Commissioner Fisher, regarding discussions. So to say that this particular Board of Commissioners is completely and separately distinct from the ethics investigation in terms of what is said in the meetings is not consistent with just the past Board of Commissioner televised meeting. So when I come up here and I talk about wanting to have case management structure for this investigation, it is important. If there are deadlines that are looming, it needs to be addressed. I've already addressed it with Mr. Barris when he was interim counsel, and he raised the specter of privilege. That's why it's being brought forward now.
Well, take that argument up with him, Mr. Sherry.
Again, I believe Solicitor Rice has recused himself.
Not from this discussion, I'm not.
Hey, John,
himself,
but I do have a question. Hold on. That's first of all, I don't think we needed to, public comments ending, but I think we do need to put this out there.
The scheduling, though, is in the Ethics Board through their counsel. It's not, if Mr. Sherry's asking this board to
Okay.
somehow interfere with that,
Right.
that's
I take considerable
inappropriate.
exception to that.
No.
I take considerable exception to that there is an assertion that there is interference.
Hold on. Okay.
Okay?
That
I
was
just
it.
coming
That was
forward
it.
and asking
Your
this
time
board-
is up.
That was an if.
We're not going to debate anymore on this. This is a matter that's in the hands of the Ethics Board. Counsel for the Ethics Board, I'm sure, will be in touch with you at the appropriate time. Thank you for your comments.
Well, then I will just conclude by stating specifically that as of this date, there are absolutely no deadlines that have been established, and solicitations for data have nobody has any idea at this point, including me, and I represent somebody who has submitted a verified complaint as to when that data is due. This meeting, the ethics meeting, happened back on April 24th. It's now mid-May. I understand there has been some changes. You being placed on Commissioner Higgins in lieu of Elaine Paul Schaefer. Mr. Rice recusing himself 72 hours after the meeting. But there needs to be some level
Jim,
of structure
time.
or it will start to be viewed as arbitrary by the public.
Thank you, Mr.
Thank
Sherry.
you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? Nobody?
Move to adjourn.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay.